If I could time travel, I would absolutely love to speak with my younger self.
Really? Why?
Well, just to tell her what's waiting for her, to tell her that it will get better and it will get worse too, but eventually at the end of the day, it will always get better, and to tell her to keep the hard work.
Or you could tell her to just forget about it and do a podcast instead.
Right, okay. Or I could just tell her that no matter what, she should be proud.
You are about to be a part of Life Happens
The lifestyle podcast with an unusual combination of new perspective and seasoned experience.
with Michelle R. Williams.
And Nick Hurst,
Come and join our conversation on all aspects of life,
because life happens.
but you can too.
So, if you got the opportunity to speak with some younger version of you, would you take it?
I'm not sure that I would actually want to go back and talk to my younger self.
Really? Why not?
Well, for one thing, I'm not sure how well we'd get on. We're probably very different people now.
Okay, fine, but that is the point, that you could talk to someone who is you, but at the same time so different from you. So let me ask a different question. If you went to see and talk to your younger self, what age and what version would you want to talk to?
Good question. And there's lots of different ages and different versions. I suppose I'd probably want to pick it up with me in my teens, mid-teens, let's say. So quite a crucial time at school. And that would be quite interesting to see that person. Because that person, in some ways, was very certain and very sort of confident about what he wanted to do. But underneath it, I think there were all sorts of little insecurities. So it would be quite interesting just to have a talk, knowing what I know now and how to communicate with people, how to actually listen to people and understand the subtext, understand what's not being said. Because I think, especially when you're younger, you will say things because, well, in my case, this is certainly true. It might not be the same for everybody, but you would say things out of a certain bravado. This is who I am and this is what I'm going to do. But inside, underneath, there might be all sorts of insecurities swimming away. And it would be quite interesting to talk to that person and try to work out what they are. Because, I mean, to be perfectly honest, that version of me is quite a few years away, and I really can't remember
A bit, yeah.
exactly how I was at that time. So it would have been quite interesting to go back, I guess, and see myself at around about age 15 and see what I was like. Would you go back to that person?
I would definitely. Maybe not exactly to the age of 15, because I don't really remember what I was going through when I was 15. Oh, I was dating my first boyfriend. Oh yeah, I would definitely not go back to that time, mind you. But I would definitely love to speak with my younger self. And obviously I don't have that many younger versions of me like you do. But still, I think that throughout my quite short life, I went through so many very different stages. And so, for example, I would love to talk to 12, 13 years old version of me. I don't think she would want to talk to me. I think that she would absolutely hate me, and she definitely wouldn't approve of the person I am now. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of her either, so we probably wouldn't get along. But thinking about it, and it's only 7, 8 years ago, which for you, I'm sure it's such a short time. For me, it's 1/3 of my life. So for me, it's quite a lot. But thinking about her and thinking about me, we are basically the opposite. That younger version of me, she just thinking about our style. She was wearing oversized hoodies, oversized clothes. She had always her hair just so much in her face. I'm sure you remember that because you unfortunately knew that version, and I'm not really happy about that. And she just tried to do everything to not be visible. And me now, I think I have a very specific style. And for example, now I only wear heels. I love wearing heels. I love being tall. This younger version of me would never wear heels. She was a sneakers girl and she was short, which I mean, I grew up when I was like, I don't know, 18 maybe, but to that point, I was super short. So that would be quite a surprise. And so, I can imagine just us hanging out and my younger version being like, oh my gosh, please do not embarrass me. And, just two sisters, two opposite people. And I don't think she would be happy with like, who am I now? And also, I kind of gave up on some of her dreams. Like, despite me studying art and design and going to art school, which she would be totally happy about, I don't want to do that anymore. And so she'll be pretty angry with me, like, oh my gosh, you studied it for 4 years and now you don't want to do it anymore. You've done art your whole life and suddenly it's not something you want to continue in. And she wouldn't be happy about it. And also, sort of coming back to the last episode, if I told her that I'm talking to you again and how close we are and that we are having a podcast together and that the podcast is in English, oh gosh, she would murder me. I can almost hear it because I know myself that well. And she would be like, oh my gosh, you speak English. Like, what do you mean? It's so annoying. We do not need to speak English. And what do you mean you talk to Nick? Like, we hate him, remember? And I would be like, yeah, we still kind of do, in just a different way.
You're talking about you talking to your younger self. Remember, I did talk to your younger self
I'm sorry.
within
I
my
feel like I have
living
to
memory.
apologize.
And I just want to sort of try to imagine it because I knew you then as your teacher, and then there was like a couple of years where we lost contact and then came back into contact. And obviously the way that we are has kind of changed. We're no longer teacher and student, but just friends. And that would have been hard, I can imagine, for her to get her head round. And actually, if I went back just 6 years, it'd be pretty hard for me to get my head round. I'm going to tell you something now that you will absolutely hate and you're going to kill
Oh
me.
gosh. Oh gosh.
Yesterday, before we came to record this, and I was thinking about the things that we would say, I went and had a look at an old photograph that is on my computer of when you were at school. Actually, it slightly predates me. It was the year before I started teaching you. And it was a school photograph of you and 3 of your classmates, all of whom I also taught, out in the gardens at the school. And yes,
I know exactly what picture you are talking about. And you are using it against me so often. It's not even funny.
I'm not using it against you. It's great, but it's really interesting to see, because you really were a different person then. And yes, you were noticeably shorter than your classmates.
Oh
And you're
yeah.
probably taller than them now, if you ever bump into them. But yeah, so a very different person physically and a very different person mentally, which, is the same for me. If I were to go back, obviously I'd be very, very different physically and mentally. It's just I can't really remember mentally quite how I was at that age, at age 15. But I suppose it's not really fair to ask you if there are any other ages that you would go back to, because you probably wouldn't want to go back to your pre-teens, and there isn't actually all that much of your post-teens to go back to.
It's not, but I feel like I'm someone who just changed a lot. You know, if I sort of remember how I was even like a year ago, I think that at this point in my life I'm going through, that period of changing a lot, and especially with, you know, I moved abroad for the first time ever, and I lived abroad on my own for the first time in my life. And that, even if you don't want it to change you, it will change you. And I don't think it's based on age, but if you do something like that, it will always change you. And So I think like, it sounds kind of weird saying like, oh yeah, I'm such a different person now, and I'm 21. But at the same time, also thinking it to me at 18, 17, 18, when I was finishing high school, I was a different person. And I would actually love to speak to that version of me too, because unlike my very young, early teen version, which, funnily enough, speaking of that picture, I think that on that picture, I'm just around 12 or 13. So that's exactly the version I'm talking about. And she was terrible. Oh gosh, she was terrible in every single way. And I'm so happy that I'm not her anymore. And I'm so happy that I made all these changes. But thinking about me just like 3, 4 years ago, it's different because, when I was finishing high school, the last 2 years of high school, they were one of the best years in my life. And to this day, I'm just like, I really miss it. And it was having really good time. But also, unfortunately, I was very naive. And I still kind of am. I tend to be very naive. And she thought that she had everything figured out. She had this very clear plan what she will do after high school, and none of it worked out. And I think that if I get to speak to her, she she would be absolutely heartbroken hearing that all of her dreams and all the hard work that she put into it was just useless and nothing really worked out. And that also she went through this office job that I was working that I was already talking about, which was one of the worst experiences ever. So she wouldn't be happy about it. But then at the same time, I think that I'm slowly becoming everything she wanted to be. And even though I'm not quite there yet, I'm a much closer to it than she was. It's not that naive anymore. So I think she would be very proud of that. I think she would look up to me because, remembering when I was like 17, 18 and I had friends that were older and I was like, you are 21, 22, you are just somewhere else. You have it all figured out. And now that I'm in my 20s, that I know that no one in their 20s have it figured out. But at the same time, it's all right. And I'm on that path and I'm finally not who everyone else wants me to be, but I finally know who I really am and what I really want. So I think she would be really proud of that. She would be so excited about this podcast. I'm telling you. I'm telling you, she'd be like, girl, we have a podcast now? That's so cool. I love it. Like, oh my gosh, how are we not embarrassed and awkward? And I'd be like, yeah, we are embarrassed and awkward, but we are doing it anyway. So I think that would be her reaction. And, thinking about it now, it was a very important year for me when, last year of high school when I was 18. And everything I do now, I sort of do for this version of me. I sort of do it for her because she had these naive dreams. And it's now up to me to maybe edit them a bit, but to fulfill them. So I think I'm doing a pretty good job so far.
That's a really interesting point that you feel that you are now doing everything for your 18-year-old self, that naive person has grown from perhaps the chrysalis that you were then into the person that you are now. And it's funny that you say that because when I think about my time when I was 18 or so, I think I was very naive as well. And then I sort of fast forward 10 years and in my late 20s, and I think I was still pretty naive, actually. I've
Nice.
always kind of felt that, everybody else around me is older and wiser, even all my peers and contemporaries. And then as I got older, even people who are younger than me, I often would just naturally assume they must be older than me because they must be wiser than me. And I just
Mhm.
wonder, does everybody have that feeling that,
Yes.
everybody else is actually probably a bit wiser and less naive? I don't know. I was
Yes.
aware of that. I was aware of that.
I think that that's actually a topic we already talked about. I think it was episode 2. And we talked about comparing yourself to, your peers and your friends. And I think that everyone feels like it. I think like maybe not everyone. If you're probably very confident in who you are, what you are doing, I think you're fine. But especially at that age, I think that everyone thinks that everyone else is just a bit wiser and everyone else has it figured out. And you are the only one who has no idea what they are doing. So I think that's something that everyone went through. And I know exactly how that feels, unfortunately. And sometimes I still feel like it, even though I'm very comfortable in what I'm doing right now and at what stage in life I am and so on and so on. Sometimes I'm also like, wow, everyone just seems like they know exactly what they are doing and I'm completely lost. But that's the illusion of, well, social media and also that you know exactly what's going on through your head, but at the same time, you know just the best parts of your friend's life. So I think that's also one of the things that I would want to tell to my younger self, and you would probably want to tell to your younger self. And it's something I'm still telling my present self as well, that she will feel like she's behind, even though she's not.
Yeah, it's not just about feeling behind. I always felt not so much about being behind, but that everybody else was wiser than me and
Mm.
more mature in the way they behaved. And that's probably very true. And when I look back at the late teenager that I was, I had this naivety, but at the same time, I had this kind of almost arrogant confidence. As you know, and as we may have mentioned before, probably not actually, we may not have mentioned, I started playing in rock bands from about the age of 14 onwards and continued to do so for 20, 30 years. And by the time of my mid to late teens, I was starting to write the songs for the bands I was in. And when I turned 18, I wrote a song imaginatively called 18 Years. And it was kind of like, it was a fairly simple rock song. And I just remember it had this staggeringly naive and arrogant lyric, which I will now quote to you. I look forward to when I'm 22. I'll look back and see what I've yet to do. Really. So I just felt that.
That's literally what this episode is about, I feel.
Explain what you mean by that.
No, you explain what you meant by it, and maybe I'm wrong, so keep going.
No, it just that I felt at age 18, there was a part of me that felt I know it all. I was having a lot of fun. I just finished at my public school in Wimbledon, taken my A levels. I was about to go to university. I was playing in a band and everything felt pretty good in my life, actually. Again, I was still in full-time education, transitioning from one level of education, school days, secondary school days, and going into university. So still living a completely protected and unreal life, you know, not exposed to the vagaries of real life that would happen later after I left university. So I could come up with such a lyric that was ridiculously, as I say, arrogant and self-confident. I want to quote another lyrics, probably by a much better songwriter. I can't name for copyright reasons, but this is from a song that was hugely successful in 1966 and has gone on to be something of a classic. And the whole song is, and again, I can't name the artist or the name of the song, but
Do I
it's
know
all,
it?
I'm not sure, 1966, Michelle, it's a little before your
Yeah, okay,
time.
but
Yeah, I know.
I'm not as stupid as I look, okay? So I might know it. Okay, you will
And
tell
I
me
didn't say
later.
that you look stupid either. I don't think that you do.
Okay, you will tell me later.
But the song, it's all about revisiting your childhood self. It's about the loss of childhood innocence and about the desire to return to a simpler and more youthful way of life. So the lyrics are expressing a longing for the past. Here's a couple of examples, and this is a direct quote. But thinking young and growing older is no sin, and I can play the game of life to win. I can recall a time when I wasn't ashamed to reach out to a friend. It's really, I think that's very revealing, that thinking that when you're younger, it's easier to reach out to friends, debate at your leisure. Another quote from it, and this is kind of thinking about trying to reconnect to the magic of childhood. And every day can be my magic carpet ride, and I can play hide and seek with my fears and live my days instead of counting my years. Let everyone debate the true reality. I'd rather see the world the way it used to be.
By the way, I know the song just because we talked about it recently.
Good.
So,
I'm glad you remember.
amateur. Yeah, I do remember. Okay. So I'm educated now, but I listened to that song and I loved it. It's really a beautiful one. And we agreed that that last lyric that you've read is just so you.
I really, really believe that the most important day in your life is today, because that's what you've got. That's your current reality, so that you're not living in the misty hazes of your past or dreaming about the future. I think it's very important to learn from the past and keep an eye on your future, but live in the present. Make the most of what you've got today, because tomorrow might never come. Hope it does, but it might not.
Wow, that was really deep. Jeez. You are supposed to be the optimistic one.
But I am sort of being optimistic in a way, but I suppose tinged with a bit of realism. And maybe I would have been saying that a bit to my younger self if I go back and say, look, hold your head up, go forward, but enjoy each day now. And also, we talked about, going back and revisiting different versions of you. You talked about you at age 12, 13, and then you at age 18. After that, you start to run out of years that you could go back. You have to start counting it in months. Whereas I have plenty of years to play with. So the advice I would say, or what I would tell my 18-year-old self, would be to stay rooted in the present day. Live each day, not as if it's your last, because when you're 18, nobody thinks like that. But at least make the most of the present. Now, if I were to fast forward 10 years or so, by which time I was living a very different life. I was unmarried. I'm not sure if I was, because I had a first marriage, as you know, way back when. But I was certainly in that relationship. And yeah, I was probably was married. And then in the first year of that phase of my life, I then got a job in Saudi Arabia. So I went off there. And even though, I was 29, 30, something like that, I still felt like this very naive person. I probably acted it, and I was probably incredibly irritating person. Anyway, so I went off to become this professional broadcaster in Saudi Arabia. There was this English language TV station, English language radio station. And I was just working 7 days a week. And I didn't mind, to be honest, because there's nothing else to do. So I would start work at 11 o'clock in the morning and finish normally just after midnight. And that will be a mix of doing some radio programs and then in the evenings presenting TV shows and also reading the news on television. So I went there, this really naive person, younger than my years, not in a good way. And because, the work was great and the level of experience that I got while I was there was more than it would have taken a decade to get the same level of experience if I was lucky in the UK, where obviously things are much more competitive. So being the one professional broadcaster there, I was able to try out things, do all sorts of things that would have just taken forever anywhere else. And I was conscious of how it was changing me and what I was learning through doing that. Plus, culturally, and again, all these points we talked about a little bit in the last episode when we were explaining who we are. But just in slightly more detail, for somebody who's newly married, young kid, going out to somewhere like Saudi Arabia, there's a huge culture shock element to it because life is very different out there. And it's also very hot as well. So all sorts of challenges in terms of just the living, plus all sorts of gains in terms of the job. And it changed me. Completely changed me. When I came back after a couple of years to settle back into the UK, I was a different person. I was much more grown up. and probably much more realistic. But at the time, you don't see it like that. You just see it as just, it's a gradual process as you go through your life. So if I went back and spoke to that person now, what would I say? I say, just get on with it. It's going to be okay.
So you would do it again, knowing what you know now, looking back at it, you would go to Saudi Arabia again, or not?
Not to do the same thing, no. Not to go and live. I would love to go and visit and see what it's like now. I mean, I know that Riyadh being the capital of Saudi Arabia, has changed and been developed hugely since then. I mean, it was quite developed then, but it was still relatively new. So I would like to go there and see what it's like and see the people again. The one thing I would have to say is that while I was there, and I was working, as I say, in the TV and radio stations, so a lot of Saudis around me working as engineers, cameramen, producers, directors, and so forth. I had a lot of Saudi friends, and there's somehow culturally, on an individual level, we would get on really well, and I've made some really good friends there, and I would love to go back and experience that part of it again. But I don't feel the need to go back there to work, and especially not now. I'm quite happy to sit in my garret in Brussels and write my books, basically, and do the odd podcast with a certain Michelle R. Williams.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you remembered.
Remember that?
Good. Yeah, that side project of yours.
A side project, side hustle.
So with that, there was something I wanted to sort of come back to, and that was when you were saying about your 18-year-old self, because you basically said what I meant, but you said that in a better way, because I called it naivety, and you called it what, arrogance?
Arrogant confidence.
Yes, arrogant confidence, which maybe is a better way to put it. But at the same time, I think that around that age, and for everybody it comes at a different age, but I think that it's sort of stage that you just can't skip. I think it's that stage between being, a teenager and not really having any huge real life problems to that everyday adult life when you're suddenly left on your own and you have to figure everything out yourself. And I think that everyone goes through that transition thinking, of course I will figure it out. Like, it's not that hard. Like, I will do this and that and in this way, and that's just about it. And you have this arrogant confidence, and then you are met with the reality, unfortunately. But I think it's a transition that just needs to be there. And I mean, obviously for everyone, it can look a little bit differently, because I think that for everyone it can be in the area of school, work, or, relationships. Sometimes people can be very naively confident in their relationships too, which wasn't really my case, but I can imagine it being the case.
It's true. And actually, I'm just thinking, in a way, you're kind of almost arguing against yourself, because you're proving yourself to be, I think, very wise. These are very wise words and not naive. And let's face it, you're, as we've said, you're 21. And I think you're showing an emotional intelligence way beyond those years. The relationship issue is an interesting one. Now you mention it. If I think about going back and giving myself advice, or it's just chatting and hanging out with my younger self, I think maybe one of the things I might want to talk about is relationship. I think in my teens, early 20s, I was very naive, and I didn't really attach much importance to having long-term relationships or deep, meaningful relationships. And because of that, I probably wasn't the nicest of people. So I think I would probably want to go back and say to myself, be a little bit more considerate, be a bit kinder. And there's a certain irony there, because while I was at university and I was doing drama, and for example, in my year when I started, there were 40 of us on this particular course, and 11 guys, and the rest were all female. It was, and for somebody who had come from an all-male school, as I had, all-male, old-fashioned English public school, to suddenly be surrounded by so many women was it was nice, it was good, but it was also slightly daunting. I was finding myself, but I became friends with so many of them, and I mean friends, just friends. And
I didn't say anything.
I just wanted. I heard you. I heard you in my head. I
You
heard that
heard
little.
me. You heard me judging you in my head.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
I'll
heard that.
stop.
It's
I'm
just
sorry.
you were sending out the vibes. No, but I used to hang out with lots of friends who happened to be girls on campus in the girls' hall of residence, which was actually on campus. My hall of residence was quite a way off campus. So, and I didn't have a car in those days when I first started there. So it was a long walk there and back. So basically, once you came into the campus in the morning, you tended to stay there till probably late-ish in the evening. And often we would just be hanging around in the girls' hall of residence because it was convenient. And I would be
Right.
hanging out with my friends who were female and often be their sounding board, be the person, be their listener, and they'd be pouring out their troubles. I mean, you made a point a little bit earlier about when you're in your teens, you think you have all these troubles and problems, but they're not real. Problems get much realer when you hit real life. But on the other hand, that doesn't diminish them in any way. Um,
Exactly.
I'm, I know I'm forever quoting songs, but it's kind of my life has been built around music and music industry. But there's a song by Neil Young called On the Beach, and in it he sings, "All my problems may be meaningless, but that don't make them go away." And it's a good point, because you can have problems that are just in your head. They might be meaningless, but they're still a problem. It's still something that's bugging you. And I used to be the guy that would listen to all these women friends of mine.
Yeah,
Uh,
that kind of
and
stayed with you. I mean, not to name names, but that kind of stayed with you.
to the extent that they nicknamed me Uncle Nick. And yet, at the same time, I was hopeless, really, looking back on it, managing my own relationships and developing deep one-on-one relationships myself, mainly because I didn't want to. And I was quite happy to have all these friends. Generally, through my life, I've had more women friends than male friends. Yeah, so that was basically my point about the one other younger version of myself that I would visit, and that would be the one in my late teens, early 20s, and give him a good talking to about relationships. Be
The
more
death talk.
mindful. But of course, the other thing that's changed since those days is societal attitudes and how we've become consciously much more egalitarian. Societal attitudes have changed, and they've changed for the better. But I think I was always someone who believed very much in everyone is as equal as everyone else. And I hope that, I mean, that's kind of the mantra that I've tried to live by ever since I was aware of such things. And I'm talking about going back to about age 14, 15. But generally, because society has changed a lot and the the attitudes have changed a lot, thinking back to how I used to be, and maybe I just wouldn't have gotten away with it.
I think all of the points we made during this episode are connected to one very important thing, and that's self awareness. Because I think you are able to do all of this only when you are self aware, and which we both are. And that is also connected to one very important topic that I want to cover, and that's healing or taking care of your inner child. Do you know what I mean by that?
And I think you need to explain it a bit more.
I believe that we all have our childhood versions somewhere within us because, all the psychological problems, all the behavioral patterns and everything comes from your childhood and from your upbringing, or most of it. And that's also, important to be very aware of. But I think this inner child of ours is the most vulnerable part of us. So, what I mean by that is that I believe that we all have this very young version of us still deep within us. And, we were talking about younger versions of us and mostly teenage versions of us. But it's also really important to be in touch with that very little version of you. because that child is the most vulnerable part of you and they bear a lot from your childhood, and that can still affect you for the rest of your life, even when you're an adult. And so I think it's really important to be that aware of yourself, to be able to be in touch with that child. And when you are, and when you see the behavior patterns or the traumas or, things that the child is bearing, you can heal it. You can take care of it. And it sort of means, in a way, to be your own parent and to recognize what your parents did that maybe didn't really suit you and try to fix it, because no one else will ever fix that for you. But if you don't fix it, it can cause huge issues throughout your life. So when I was talking about that everything I do now, I'm doing for this younger version of me that's looking up to me. It's also important to realize that everything you do now, you do for this very little version of you. And what I absolutely love about my 20s is coming back to everything that I loved when I was a kid and things, and that's sort of also like early teens, but sometimes you get judged for things you are doing. And now I can finally do it without the fear of being judged. So I feel like this is my way of healing that inner child within me, and to make her proud, because like I can just imagine this little girl who is shy, but at the same time she doesn't want to be shy, and I'm like, it's okay, we are not shy anymore, like we can do this and we can do this and we are doing all right. And it just really makes me proud, and at the same time it's healing something within me, which no one else will heal it. It's my job to do that, and seeing that I'm actually doing it just makes me so proud.
I think it's really important to nurture your inner child at whatever stage of adult life you're in. Obviously, when you're a child, you don't need to be looking after your inner child because
Yeah.
you're an outer child. But
Yeah.
when you're an adult, that inner child doesn't go away. And if it does, I think it's to your detriment. So don't let it. And be proud of that and let your inner child be proud of you. I think the one of the best points you made there was to say that it's like you become your own parent. And I think that's true. If you can do that, because inevitably our parents have a huge influence over our lives in every possible way. We kind of judge ourselves by what would they think or what would they say, and they're not always right. So when you become your own parent, you have a very good chance of being right all the time. Not necessarily, but a very good chance, because you're the parent. So you can say, actually, I'm right.
And you agree with your younger self then? Or you don't, and you argue with your own self, which I do a lot, but that's another story.
Oh, I do, and I have all sorts of discussions with myself. But I still believe in the inner child, and I still believe in my dreams. And I've talked about dreams in the past episodes already, and we're only 4 episodes in. But I think it's very important to hold on to your dreams and try to work towards them, because that way you might just have a chance of really enjoying your life. And that, I think, is the most important thing to do.
Yeah, that was sort of my point, that, those people are just letting go of those stupid, naive dreams that they had when they were children. Like when you ask a little kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? No one will tell you, oh, I want to work this office job staring at a computer screen from 9 to 5. No child will tell you that. All these, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be an actress, I want to be a ballet dancer. And it's just so beautiful. And it makes me so sad that people are just so easily letting go of that. Like, you wanted to be, this and that. Why are you not trying to be that anymore? But at the same time, another very important point that I want to make here is that it's also all right to let go of the dreams when you realize it's not something you want anymore. I don't think it's okay to let go of it with some lame excuse of like, oh no, I'm not good enough, or like it's hard, whatever. No, these excuses are just lame. But as you are developing as a person, you obviously don't want the same things you wanted when you were younger. And that's sort of, I'm coming back to me and my 12 years old version, because she wanted to be an artist. And because of her, I went to art high school. But now it's not something that I want anymore. And it's not because it's hard, or it's not because I don't think I'm good enough. It's just something that I know that my current version wouldn't enjoy anymore. And so despite, my younger version probably being very disappointed by that, I think it's also important to realize this used to be my dream, but it's not my dream anymore. And this other thing is my dream now. And so I need to let go of it.
And the point you made before that about, yes, dreams can change, and that's fine, but don't give up on your dreams. Don't let life get in the way. Don't make excuses, because life happens. Stuff will get in the way, but you can still get through that, and you can still happen too. You can still have your own life. Don't let the fact that life happens, oh, I've got to face real life now, be the excuse. I think that's the takeaway from this episode.
Definitely. I think that's the takeaway from this whole podcast in general. But with what you say, I would want to sort of specify it in the way you can give up on certain dreams, but never give up on having dreams.
So I think that's where we'll wrap it up for today. But please, if you want to tell us what your dreams are, or how they've changed, or how you've adapted, then please do.
You can write us a message at our Instagram at lifehappens.podcast, or you can leave us a comment on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you are listening to your podcasts.